entire world was watching. Would a member of Congress be willing to buck his own party and his own president to do what he thought was right for the nation? This congressman put aside party politics and risked his entire political career to do what he thought was right for the country. He became the first Republican to come out for impeachment. He was the only Republican in the entire Congress who voted for all 3 articles of impeachment. That man was my dad, Lawrence J. Hogan Sr., and I can tell you I learned more about integrity and doing the right thing and putting aside partisan politics in one day from him than most people learn in a lifetime. So I have a long history of involvement here in Maryland politics, but I'm not a professional politician. I haven't spent my entire career in office. I've never held elective office. I haven't spent my lifetime running for office. I've spent most of my life in the private sector, building a successful business. I'm just a small businessman, a lifelong Marylander, who's really concerned about the direction of our state, and I'm fed up with politics as usual in Annapolis. I was concerned that our state was way off track and heading in the wrong direction, and that the future of our state was really at risk. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing, knowing that together we could make a difference and that we could bring about real change in Maryland. So 3.5 years ago, I started a nonpartisan grassroots organization called Change Maryland. We were dedicated to finding common sense economic solutions. And what started as just a small group of a couple of fed up friends grew into the largest and fastest growing grassroots organization in state history. We have 112,000 people involved, and nearly half of them are Democrats and independents. Our movement isn't about the differences between the right and the left. It's really about the difference between the right and the wrong. This is not a fight, a typical fight between Republicans and Democrats. It's more important than that. This is a fight for Maryland's future, and it's a fight worth fighting. Folks, I've been traveling all across the state. I've had the opportunity to talk with a great many Marylanders from all walks of life, from one end of the state to the other. And the common theme that I keep hearing everywhere is frustration. It doesn't matter whether you're black or white, rich or poor, young or old, Democrat or Republican, from inner city Baltimore or from a small farm on the Eastern Shore. People everywhere feel a huge disconnect between the politicians in Annapolis and the rest of Maryland. We feel that our elected leaders are not only not solving the serious problems that face us, but that they're actually causing the problems and making things worse. Quite frankly, most of the people I talk with, they're really angry and frustrated with Republicans and Democrats. And they wish that the parties would just stop fighting. We wouldn't have so much partisanship, that we could just sit down at the table together, reach across the aisle, and come up with real bipartisan solutions to the serious problems that are facing us. Folks, our state is in real trouble, and we can't keep moving backwards for another 4 years. Something has to be done to turn our state around before it's too late. The current administration in Annapolis has passed 40 consecutive tax hikes that have taken an additional $10 billion out of the pockets of struggling Marylanders, families, and small businesses. And most of these taxes are regressive taxes that really affect people at the lower end of the income scale the most. This has been devastating to our economy. We've lost 10 of our 13 Fortune 500 companies. We've lost 8,000 small businesses. We've doubled unemployment in the state. 100,000 people have lost their jobs. 200,000 Marylanders are now unemployed. Last month, we led the nation in job loss. We're second in the nation in foreclosures. Folks, we just can't continue heading in the same direction. Here in Prince George's County, where we have the wealthiest and most highly educated black population in the United States, we lead the nation. We're now #1 in foreclosures. In Maryland, we've had the largest mass exodus of taxpayers, voting with their feet and heading for the exits, fleeing our state, of any state in the Mid-Atlantic region. 31,000 Marylanders have left the state, taking with them $1.7 billion a year out of our economy. And a recent Gallup poll showed that nearly half of all Marylanders, 47%, would leave the state if they could. You know, Maryland is a wonderful state with so many great assets. And in spite of all those natural assets, we've had zero economic growth, and our state economy ranks 49th out of 50 states. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care who you are, black or white, young or old, Democrat or Republican, this economic performance should simply be unacceptable to all Marylanders. We can't keep moving backwards for another 4 years. We should be number 1, not number 49. The people in this room tonight, and people everywhere all across our state, deserve much better than that. It doesn't matter whether I'm in Western Maryland, the Eastern Shore, or Baltimore City. I'm meeting with people who feel that they've been forgotten. They feel that they're either starting to lose or they've already lost hope. Hope in the system, hope in their elected representatives, and hope for the future for themselves and their families. Just recently, on Labor Day weekend, we held a cookout in inner city Baltimore, and we walked around those neighborhoods. Is anybody here from Baltimore? Couple right down here. Well, do you know the Rosemont section? Walbrook Junction, North Avenue? These are places where we spent some time recently. And people told us that nobody ever shows up in their neighborhoods, that nobody cares about them. We were the first ones who showed up, and we listened. And you know what was interesting? The folks on North Avenue had some of the same feelings as the folks in Western Maryland or other parts of the state. People told us, we're forgotten. No one cares about us or our concerns. Taxes are too high. We need more jobs. Nobody is solving the problems. Many of the folks we met in those neighborhoods said they don't usually vote. And the ones who do, we know, will most likely vote for our opponents. But we went there anyway, and we told them that we do care. And that if they want things to change in their neighborhoods, that they have the power to change it. The power is in their hands. They can vote to bring about change by voting for a change in the leadership in power and voting to go in a new direction. You can't just stay home and complain about the problems and not get involved in trying to do something about them. You have to get out and vote. You have to challenge the status quo. A voteless people is a hopeless people. There's a tendency these days, especially among young people, to feel that their vote doesn't matter. Many young people are turned off by politics as usual. They're disillusioned and complacent. Maybe there's a feeling that their rights and privileges will always be there for them. But the men who founded Alpha Phi Alpha and your grandparents know better. To not vote is to make a mockery of the sacrifice of the people who fought for your rights. Countless Americans, many of whom are proud to call themselves Alphas. Those of you here tonight, you know how important it is to vote. But you need to tell your friends and your acquaintances to get out and vote. And for those who aren't registered, you need to get them registered to vote. You also know that if nothing changes, nothing changes. And that if you want to bring about change, you have to vote to bring about that change. Because as Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Look, it's pretty simple. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you always got. Now, the pollsters and the political experts would tell me that no matter what my platform is, no matter what the track record of my opponent is, that many of you in this room aren't even going to consider voting for me because of the R next to my name. But I'm here to challenge that assumption. And the experts would also say that my opponent doesn't even have to bother to show up in front of a predominantly African American audience, because no matter what his record is, no matter what he says or does, that he has your vote locked up without even trying. Look, I'll be the first to admit that many people in my party are unwilling to reach out to the black community about our ideas, about the promise of empowerment, economic freedom, and opportunity. And that bothers me. But too many people on the other side feel that they can ignore you and just take your vote for granted, year after year, whether their policies are working or solving the problems or not. That bothers me too. And it should bother you. Why should you be able to be stereotyped? Why should one candidate or one party be able to just write you off and the other side just take you for granted? You should not allow anyone to ignore you. And you shouldn't let anyone take you for granted. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not important. Don't let anyone tell you that your vote doesn't matter. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to vote for or against someone just because of their party affiliation or the color of their skin. And don't let anyone tell you that you have to vote for a certain party or a particular candidate just because of the color of your skin. A voteless people is a hopeless people. I implore you to get out and exercise your right and your obligation to vote. And I hope you'll encourage everyone you know to do the same. Thank you very much for thanks to the courageous efforts of some of the alphas that went before you, some of your fraternity brothers who came before you. Each and every one of you has the power and the freedom to have your own opinions, to make your own decisions, and to pick your own choices based on what you believe is best for your future and the future of our state and our nation. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address you tonight. Thank you.